Hello, good morning, and welcome. I'm Bob Rogers, Executive Director of Coastside Land Trust. I would like to welcome you all to this edition of Coastside Land Trust's free community webinar series. The Coastside Land Trust is dedicated to the preservation, protection, and enhancement of the open space environment, including the natural, scenic, recreational, cultural, historical, and agricultural resources of Half Moon Bay and the San Mateo County coast for present and future generations. We are a nonprofit organization working hard since 1997 to safeguard our scenic bluffs, open space, stream corridors, and agricultural lands from the southern city limits of Half Moon Bay north through the community of Montera in San Mateo County. Taking a strategic approach to land conservation, we protect land by purchasing and accepting donations of land and conservation easements. We secure private and public funding for land conservation. We provide assistance and resources to landowners interested in protecting their land. And we lead conservation, restoration, stewardship, and educational activities. And every day we remain dedicated to protecting our coastline and our future. As members of our community and valued Coastside Land Trust supporters, we ask you to make choices that support our organization and our important work. This can be done by donating through our website. Other easy ways to donate are through planned giving of assets of land through wills and living trusts, vehicle donation, gifts of stock, or tribute gifts. Also showing up for work days and passing along our message and our mission. The important part here is that we all do our part in whatever way we can to help protect and steward our shared open spaces. Thank you for joining us here today. We have a very special treat in store for you with our very own Sara Polgar, who will be discussing our Wavecrest Trail Extension project. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Kate Garvey-Dickey, our social media coordinator, to introduce our presenter.
Awesome.
Take it away, Kate.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you all for joining us for our free webinar series. Our goal here is to bring just a diversity of environmental perspectives and help us better understand the world and our role in caring for it, both locally and globally. And today we're going to be diving in to learn about what's happening in our own backyard here at the Wavecrest Coastal Trail Extension. Before we begin, a couple quick reminders, just to type your questions into the Q&A section, please. We'll have a formal Q&A at the end where Sara will ask we'll ask Sara some questions, as many of those questions we can get to in the time allowed. And we will have a follow-up email coming out in the next couple of days. So afterwards, this will come to your inbox. Please share it. This is great information. There's lots of people with probably similar questions that you have. So if you can think of anyone to share it with, that's always a wonderful way to kind of help spread the word. But today we're excited to welcome Coastside Land Trust Sara Polgar, Chief Operating Officer, and the Wavecrest Coastal Trail Extension Project Manager. Welcome, Sara Polgar.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you all for joining me to learn the latest about Coastside Land Trust's Wavecrest Coastal Trail Project this morning. This project is going to fill a big gap in the coastal trail in Half Moon Bay. It also includes beach access stairs down to Redondo Beach, safe parking off of Redondo Beach Road with a restroom, and also we'll be restoring areas where casual trails and informal parking is rapidly eroding the bluff tops. It's a big project, 10 years in the making, and I'm really excited to share the latest info about it now that CLT is getting ready to start construction in July. My name is Sara Polgar, as you know, and I've been a Half Moon Bay resident since 2008 and a CLT board member from 2011 through August of last year. I did have a 3-year break in there to serve on the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission. And during that time, my kind of day job was working as a coastal planner with the Bay Conservation and Development Commission, or BCDC, where I developed the Bay Area Water Trail Plan for kayaking and other types of non-motorized recreational boating. I also worked with East Bay cities on addressing sea level rise in their general plans. And then in 2016, I moved to work with the San Mateo Resource Conservation District right here. They have their office right here in town, where I managed the erosion and sediment management program. I did numerous rural roads repair and creek restoration projects with both public and private landowners, mostly in the Pescadero area. And as a CLT board member during this time, I worked closely with Joe Chamberlain, our executive director who retired in 2023, on the planning and fundraising for the Wavecrest Trail Project that I'll be discussing today. And so then last August, I joined CLT staff as the chief operating officer and manager of this trail project. Now, I know, well, I'm guessing that most of you are familiar with the Wavecrest area that I'll be talking about today, but I'm going to start with a map to help orient us all. You can see the Wavecrest bluff tops here, and to the left is north. You can see downtown Half Moon Bay in the top left corner here. Highway 1 is running along the back of this map. And then where the W is here, this area is CLT's 50 acres property. That's where we built a segment of the coastal trail back in 2014. And then this area outlined in white is the project area I'll be talking about today. Its south border is the Redondo Beach Road here. And then along the east side, you can see there's Smithfield Ballpark. So that just gives us kind of a picture of where we are out here in Half Moon Bay. And I get the question, why this project a lot? There's already access at Wavecrest. It's, people are out there using it all the time. And so I think first and foremost, when I answer this question, I go back to CLT's mission, because the two big components of this project, providing environmentally protective and safe coastal access for recreation and restoring the bluff tops, are fundamental to our mission of preserving, protecting, and enhancing open space on the coast side. And then on the right, there's the beauty of Wavecrest. It's an incredible, very special place, natural place. People come from far and wide to enjoy the walking and biking, getting to the beach, watching wildlife, looking at wildflowers. Now's a great time to go out and look at wildflowers. And so, that's a big component of this project, obviously, is enabling people to enjoy the Wavecrest beauty. But right now, the way the access there is really unsafe. If the bottom right here, you can see the parking at the informal parking at the end of Redondo Beach Road. There's huge potholes and basically nothing preventing some cars from driving off the edge. Then to get down to the beach, it's a crazy scramble. And you can see these young ladies trying to get down to the beach at the Arroyo or the ravine, west end of the ravine. And then there's, all the trails, the informal trails get muddy and rutted, especially in the winter, and they're really difficult. There's gullies cutting into the trails as well. And as people are trying to find their way out there, they're cutting new trails, and you're seeing a lot more erosion happening. This big picture in the top right, you can see the effects of all the casual trails eroding the bluffs back and damaging habitat. Also, when people, for instance, in the top left here, people are trying to get around this wet spot, and then they're just walking into new areas of habitat. So essentially, we have, without formal trails or beach stairs or parking, Wavecrest is just getting very beat up from the heavy and unmanaged use. This project is also building on previous success. So in 2014, CLT installed a segment of the unpaved coastal trail on the 50 acres property. I pointed this out in the initial map that showed. It has dramatically reduced the issues of habitat damage and erosion by consolidating the walking and biking and use onto the gravel trail. It's not perfect. There's still some, informal trail use, but it's consolidated a lot of the use, which has really helped. Also, the trail was very well designed, and it drains well. It's held up well. You can see in this bottom picture, sorry, it's a little fuzzy. I love this picture because it's the Tosa Trail. We were so excited about, and this happened right after, or shortly after we completed the trail. You can see Joe here, who I mentioned previously, in the green vest. I'm on the other side. It's probably that we felt a bit heady from the success of the bird trail, because somehow I think Joe was able to forget the pain of planning and managing a major construction project. And I was able to do the same when it came to endlessly writing grant applications for funding. And Joe and I decided to do it again. I think we actually said to each other, let's just finish the rest of the trail through to Redondo Beach Road as if it was nothing. We were really naive, but onward. And so we began the planning. And right, this view is kind of zoomed in on the previous map to just show the Wavecrest project area. And initially, we were really just thinking about the trail alignment. That was originally kind of what we were planning to do, is just the trail going through. And so there were a lot of considerations we had to address as we were doing this planning. This is a coastal trail, so we wanted the trail to run along the bluff edges as close as possible, because that's where people want to go on the bluffs, and that's kind of where they do go. At the same time, we needed it set back far enough for safety and also to allow for erosion, which is just inevitable in this environment. And you can see the orange outline here is the bluff edge. And in some areas, obviously, it's really eroding back quickly. So that's a big issue. We also needed to avoid and minimize impacts to sensitive habitats out here, like wetlands, which are in green and blue here, as well as this riparian area, which runs along the ravine that cuts through the center, or kind of through the Wavecrest area out here. And of course, very importantly, we had to ensure that the trail would only be on CLT property and city-owned rights-of-ways, known as paper streets. CLT has a license use agreement with the city to have the trail on these paper streets. You can see these pink parcels shown on this map are non-CLT private lands. In other words, not CLT parcels or city rights-of-way. And so that's where the trail and anything else, it could not go there. We had to avoid those areas. And then also running along the back on the east edge of the project area is a sewer line, and there's actually a dirt road along there that we had to make sure stayed open and available for access to the sewer line. And then lastly, we wanted to take into account the informal trails that were already out there. They're both an opportunity and a constraint. They're an opportunity because we want to align the formal trail along the informal trails as much as possible, because, why reinvent the wheel? At the same time, we wanted, where we aren't doing that, we need to restore the informal trail and areas of bare ground to address the drainage problems, which are causing a lot of the erosion. And we can, again, only do this on CLT owned parcels or paper streets. Now, in the process of planning for the trail, we realized there are some important considerations for beach access. Of course, people are scrambling down to the beach right here, the north and south sides of the ravine, and it's really unsafe. It's causing rapid erosion of the bluffs, but people are going to continue to do that to get down to the beach there, regardless of what we do with the trail. So it's best to install some sort of stable, stairs or ramp or something far enough back from the beach that it's not going to be in the tide zone. It needs to, so it can last. It also needs to be permissible under building code. So we needed to come up with a solution or something. There needed to be a beach access component to this project. And then lastly, there's the parking issue. That was kind of by virtue of necessity, because this parcel off to the right is at the end of Redondo Beach Road. It's the dirt area. I showed a picture of it earlier with the big potholes. It's an area that's really unsafe. We wanted to close it off. CLT does own that parcel. And we want to revegetate it and address some of the erosion that's happening there. But the California Coastal Act requires that if beach access parking, even an informal site like this, is closed off, at a minimum, equivalent parking has to be provided nearby to offset the loss. And in fact, the Coastal Act calls for maximizing access, including beach access parking where feasible. So the bottom line is that to close off this unsafe informal parking area and revegetate it and restore it, we needed to provide alternate parking. So what we ended up with, when you overlay the kind of project features on that previous map that I showed, you see the black line is the gravel trail alignment. And then you can see there's also the black areas here. There's the two parking lots along Redondo Beach Road. There's this blue area, it's a little harder to see right at the end of the ravine. That's where those are beach access stairs coming down from the south side as well as the north side. And then these areas of yellow will be where we want to restore areas that are casual trails or bare ground and address drainage to kind of slow down, to prevent the rapid erosion that's happening. Another view that's easier to see, this is a little less cluttered, to kind of see the features again. You know, you can see the trail in red. There are the two parking areas along Redondo Beach Road along the right side, and the area at the end of the road that will be restored. To give a sense of scale, if you were to go from this parking lot at the top right here down to the south beach access, that's about 0.3 miles. If you were to follow the trail around to the north side, that'd be about, to the north side beach access, that'd be about 0.6 miles. It's about the same distance from Smith Field to the north beach access, about 0.6 miles as well. I do want to point out a few changes since that happened in recent years. One is that during the review by the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission in 2023, the amount of parking was reduced to better match the loss of parking with the closure of the dirt area at the Redondo Beach Road. So it used to have these 3 parking areas you can see, and the middle parking area is no longer part of the project. So it's just the 2 parking areas. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But the other key thing is that CLT acquired additional parcels in this area, and that allows us to do an alignment for the coastal trail that's closer to the bluffs. As you can see in the older design, we really, the alignment cut pretty far into the bluff tops, into new areas, and it wasn't as desirable of a trail alignment. So we have a much better trail alignment now. Now, in terms of features, I mentioned it's a gravel trail where it'll be compacted gravel. It's going to be 8 feet wide in most locations. There will be some locations where it's a narrower, for instance, at like lookout, trails going to a lookout. It will have a soft shoulder, and it's designed and constructed and will be constructed to drain properly, which will ensure longevity. It's very important for trail longevity. It's going to be good for year-round use, unlike the kind of casual trails out there now for walking and biking, horses, strollers, excuse me. And there will be wood split rail fencing along some sections of the trail to keep people out of sensitive habitat areas. So we want them to stay on trail, especially also in restoration areas. And we will also be blocking off the end of the dirt area at the end of Redondo Beach Road that will be revegetated. And then there's the wooden beach access stairs. At the bottom here, you can kind of see the design drawings here. The beach is at the bottom, and then north is to the left, again, south to the right. And so you can just see the alignment of where the stairs are currently designed to go. The yellow areas are areas of restoration where we'll be doing work to address drainage issues and revegetate. And then there's these blue kind of long blobs in here. Those are gullies that will have to be stabilized, repaired and stabilized, especially on the north side for the stairs alignment. The stairs themselves will be wooden, redwood. We're not using pressure treated wood. They're mostly going to be hand construction. And again, they will at the bottom be set back from the beach. So they're not going to be in like the tide zone. In terms of the parking lots, there'll be 2 of them, as I mentioned. They'll have 35 standard spots plus 2 ADA compliant spaces that'll be near the restroom on the eastern parking lot. Again, this is Redondo Beach Road. East is to the top here of the screen. And they'll have, same compacted gravel as the trail. They'll have split rail fencing around them, wheel stops to mark where the parking spots are. We did have to remove the horse trailer parking from the western lot. The dimensions of the parking lot changed because they had to be redone because of some stormwater retention requirements, and it was really no longer feasible to have horse trailer parking. Basically, you get the horse trailers in, but there was no way to get them back out. Also, I want to point out that the parking lots, once they're open, will be posted with signage for the parking lot hours, which will be dawn to dusk, and there will be no overnight parking allowed. But there will also not be any gates on the parking lots. The Coastal Commission has made it clear to us that we would not be allowed to restrict vehicle access to those new parking lots because it's replacing the informal parking at the dirt lot at the end of Redondo Beach Road. Essentially, we'd never be able to, lock the gates. So we're not going to build gates there, put the gates there. However, I've been working with the neighbors near Redondo Beach Road and city staff on options for addressing issues like the illegal dumping. There's also been fireworks at the end of the road. It may be possible once the new parking lots are installed to gate off the road, Redondo Beach Road, west of the western parking area, since there will no longer be parking at the end of the road. So that would be a potential solution, TBD, but working with folks to try to address those problems. In terms of other amenities at the parking lots, there'll be the restroom at the eastern parking lot with, it'll be a two stall, flush restroom. It will look slightly different than this picture because there is a utility closet between the two bathrooms, but basically the look and feel, the wood siding, et cetera, that will be the same. There's no electricity to the site, no power to the site, but we will have solar panel on the restroom to power the lights in the restroom stalls, as well as externally. And those lights we plan to have motion censored controlled at night. And then the bathrooms will be locked at night. There will be professional cleaning service to maintain and stock the restrooms, and then also the pet waste stations. There will be a drinking fountain you can see on the side of the restroom. I think the one that we will have a bottle filling station. And then Republic Services will provide regular trash and recycling service. Note that the trash and recycling will be in these bear saver enclosures that you can see here. Same as you see at Francis State Beach, it's appropriate, much more appropriate for a trailhead. There will be no dumpster like what's currently at the end of Redondo Beach Road. The city, will have that removed. I cannot promise that this will eliminate illegal dumping, which is quite the issue at the end of the road currently. But at least these enclosures will not be an invitation to dump stuff like a dumpster is, frankly. We will also have a few bike racks at each of the parking lots, as well as at the tops of the stairs locations once the stairs are installed. And then I've been getting a lot of questions about signage, so I wanted to show the template designs. Please note that these are still being finalized, so I would consider these previews or preliminary at this point. You can see the menu of trail sign types, orientation, trailhead and wayfinding, regulatory, interpretation, and restroom signage. The trailhead and wayfinding example, you can see these examples here. And this is kind of where the preliminary sign locations, obviously these are not to scale, but they're just to show where they would be going as well, with the interpretive as well here in the blue. Primarily, I also wanted to point out that we are going to replace the signage on the existing 50 acres bird trail segment of the coastal trail when we install the signs for this new trail project. Primarily, the wayfinding signage will be on posts and they will be visible, but we wanted to we didn't want them to be intrusive on the landscape out there. There will be parking signage to show like at the locations of the two parking lots, so folks can tell where those entrances are from Redondo Beach Road. And then, of course, there'll be regulatory signage about rules and staying on the trail and hazards. A lot of those, especially within the trail alignment, will be on like the post signs, similar to the wayfinding signs as well. And then there'll be interpretive signs. In this case, we're planning to use smaller interpretive signs as compared to what we currently have on the 50 acres bird trail along there. And some may even be mounted on cross posts like on the fencing itself. The trailhead wayfinding and parking and regulatory signage will be installed first as part of the initial trail and parking construction. The interpretive signage will be installed later and over time as we develop the content, including the artwork. And then the last thing about features I wanted to point out is the revegetation and restoration work. This is a big component of the project. The drainage issues out there caused by informal trails, which they concentrate the runoff during storm events. And that leads to gully erosion and bare ground. And you can really see this in this top left photo, all the trails coming in, how that affects the erosion out there. And so this project involves regrading and reseeding these areas of bare ground to revegetate them and reduce the concentrated runoff that's causing that unnaturally fast erosion of the bluffs. It's kind of like a retreat of the bluffs. And so we also will be repairing the gullies, very large gullies at the stairs location to stabilize this area, because that's where we'll be installing the stairs. So I'm including a couple pictures of what restoration and revegetation looks like in other projects that I've done. This is a gully project on the top here in the top row. This is at the left is before the project. It was a very big gully. And then after they'd reshaped it, this is immediately after construction. You can see there's the erosion features, the erosion control features. So they have the erosion blanket with straw wattles. It's been seeded. And then 6 months later, it's starting to really grow in. On the bottom is another type of project where we were doing a rural road repair at a creek crossing in Pescadero Creek County Park. And so the whole crossing was failing. So it had to be excavated out and rebuilt with proper drainage. And on the left is what it looked like right after. And you can see that this slope here below the orange arrow is showing there's erosion control blanket and slash, or it's kind of like woody vegetation, heavy duty mulch, you can think of it. And so that's right after construction. And after 2 years, you can really see that it's grown in, and it's hard to tell even that construction has happened. Even in the background, you can see that slope behind is grown in. So it takes some time, but it really grows in and looks good. But initially, there's an awkward phase right after construction. Fortunately, it does pass. So I just wanted to help people understand what to expect with the revegetation and restoration areas. So construction phases are divided up a bit because the construction of the gravel trail and parking areas, as well as the restoration work, that all involves grading to cut the trail, for instance. There's a lot of movement of excavated material, engineered fill, gravel, things like that. Compaction of the trail as it's being built. There's also compaction in the areas being restored, where the gullies are being restored in the location of the stairs. It involves heavy equipment, and this type of ground disturbing work has to be completed in dry conditions. In contrast, the construction of the wooden stairs is done by hand. It's mostly carpentry. And because it doesn't involve groundwork, we're really not limited to working on the stairs construction only in dry conditions. It's also a different type of work entirely. So, and then the utilities in restrooms are a mix. The installation of the water main and the sewer line connections, that does involve trenching with some heavy equipment, though not nearly to the scale of what is involved for the trails and the parking and the restoration work. But then you have the actual restoration installation, which is basically like a home construction. So both the stairs and the restroom, they really have to wait until the trail, parking, and restoration work have been completed. The gully restoration needs to occur before we can install the stairs, and the parking lot needs to be there where the restroom's going to go. But it's actually going to be used as the construction staging site where we're going to have equipment and materials throughout the summer when we're doing this, the construction of the trails, parking, restoration, etc. So that's kind of the breakdown of where the different phases of construction. Now, I mentioned the heavy equipment for construction, and that includes things like an excavator, which you can see in the background, a tractor with a box scraper that's in the foreground here. There's we'll have water trucks that are spray water for to keep down dust and to help with compaction. And then there'll be rollers for compacting, two types, a sheep's foot and a flat roller for different, for the gully compaction, for instance, and for the trail compaction. There'll be different types of dump trucks for moving materials, and there'll even be a bottom drop dump truck for distributing the gravel along. They'll just kind of drive along the path of where the trail is going to be spreading the gravel, and that makes it's a very efficient way to get the gravel out there. And you can see this, actually the pictures on the top here are from a project that I did with the same contractor, BW Engineering, excuse me. Brian Willett is the contractor, and the same project engineer, Tim Best, in the near the Pescadero area. And it's actually a gravel road, so it's wider, but it's very similar, the same equipment types of things. So you can see the kinds of what it'll look like during construction. And he's going to start off, they're going to start off by clearing the path of the new trail, so removing the vegetation. And then they'll take out probably the top, about 4 inches in the path of the trail. That material, that soil and material will be saved or stockpiled because we're going to be using that for the restoration work. But then as they're continuing to build the trail, they'll lay down fabric and base rock, and they'll compact, and then they'll also be laying down a top layer of gravel, and they'll compact some more. So that's how they're going to build up the trail and the trail alignment. And then where they're doing the casual trails restoration, they'll be using like an attachment on a tractor or an excavator to kind of rip up the surface because it's so compacted in those areas. And then they'll add soil, likely that, it'll be that excavated material from the trail path. And then they'll seed those areas with a native seed that's, native to coastal prairie habitat. So that'll be, kind of the restoration sequence in those areas. For fixing the big gullies and some of the other big erosion areas or sites, they will need to do more reshaping to kind of fill it in because it's lost a lot of material. And then they'll compact those areas using that sheep's foot roller to stabilize them. It's construction. It will be, it's not going to, it'll look a little messy and stuff. My engineer always likes you to say you need to break some eggs to make an omelet. And that is the case with construction like this. So I just wanted to help people understand what to expect out there. So the areas where we'll be working are, starting in July, the section of the phase of construction will be these black lines are the gravel trails that are being built again, and the parking areas here on the right side along Redondo Beach Road, and then the yellow areas of restoration. We will not be building the stairs in this phase, but I kept the blue in here because there will be the repair of the gullies on these, in the stairs locations. So staging where we're gonna, where the equipment and materials will stay, will be primarily in the 2 future parking lots, although there will be some smaller staging areas along the trail path, fenced out, designated by fencing. And then there'll be the access for the equipment, like where they'll be going is along the future trail alignment, which includes out to here. So there'll be all of this alignment, will be where the equipment is driving, but also in the restoration areas, because you recall what I told you about how what's necessary for restoring the casual trails does involve big equipment. So expect also to see big equipment in the areas where we're doing restoration work and drainage repair. And then the gravel will be arriving in dump trucks, along Redondo Beach Road and coming in through one of the 2 parking areas. So before construction starts, the biologist for the project, who's from our consultant SWCA, will be doing pre-construction surveys for protected species, for nesting birds. They'll be identifying and marking out areas where construction activities might need to be excluded. If there's, for instance, if there's an active nest, they'll mark out a boundary around that area, buffered area, and that we have to stay out of there, and then until the nest fledges. That's just one example. We will also be doing they they will also be doing environmental awareness training for the construction team, which includes our contractor, construction crew, project engineer, me. And that training includes things like how to identify protected species and the procedures to follow for, when to stop work and who to notify, if an animal enters the work area, things like that. And then the contractor will mobilize equipment to the site and start by clearing the future parking lots and setting up temporary wildlife fencing around them and security fencing around them, and then grading and graveling the parking areas. And these will be, as I said, the primary staging areas for equipment and materials throughout the project this summer. And then also early on in the project, we will flag the property corners and property lines for CLT's properties. Last fall, we had a surveyor go out and do a boundary survey to identify these relevant property corners for CLT property. And those are shown as blue. I can't tell if it's a little bit small, but on this map, you can see a bunch of little blue dots on there. Those are those surveyed points. We'll be using very clearly visible flags on these spots so that when the contractor's equipment operators are working, they'll be able to identify where the boundaries are and stay in the lines. In other words, stay on CLT property or the city rights of way as they're working. Now, our goal during the project construction is to maintain public access as much as possible. So we were not restricting public access to the bluff tops. However, access will be restricted, will not be allowed in active work areas, especially, for example, where there's equipment working, or in staging and stockpiling areas. And so these no-go areas will be marked by temporary signage, fencing, and or cones. And I want to give folks a heads up that early on, the north part of the informal dirt lot at the end of Redondo Beach Road, the part that has the really bad potholes, will be closed off to cars. And it's going to be used for stockpiling excavated material, in part because some of that material will be used to help restore that area, but also because early on we have to clear the parking area. So that's where that material will be stored. We'll be putting trail project news, including news about upcoming work in the for the following week. We'll be posting that weekly at our website. We already have a Wavecrest Coastal Trail extension website, and we'll be putting the link and the QR code for that on temporary signage, construction signage out there. Now, I wanted to just touch upon the other two phases of construction, the stairs, and what's coming next for those stairs in the restroom. There's been obviously significant erosion in recent years out at the stairs locations, particularly on the south side, that requires additional design work now. And it's pretty challenging actually to design the south stairs to meet building code, but also the 20-year longevity that we're required. It's a standard we're required to meet for our funders. So once we do that, we will there is some permitting we have to complete for the south stairs. The north stairs are not nearly as challenging to build as the south stairs. They're not nearly as steep on that bluff face. But a complication is that we need access for vehicles to bring down supplies like the wood, for instance, for building the stairs to the bottom of the bluffs. And that the access has to be via the north side. So if we build the stairs on the north side, in this picture, we're looking north, and this you can see is over here in this top picture on the left side, and the picture on the bottom. We need that to be open, that's where they're going to be able to have access. If we go ahead and build the stairs on the north side, we would kind of preclude our ability to build the south stairs, because it would be great if we could just go ahead and say, okay, well, while we're figuring out, finishing up the south stair design, et cetera, let's just go ahead and build the north stairs. But we can't, because then that would essentially, we wouldn't be able to build the south stairs after. So there's a lot of timing and sequencing things. We also had some changes in when the availability of our funding, not the amount, but the availability of it, the timing for that. So we're working some of these things out, and assuming we can address these issues for the south stairs, we'd really like to get to construction starting this winter. I'll be honest, I think it's more likely in 2026, but we're working hard to get this done as quickly as possible. And then the restroom, the future for this is more certain. It's just essentially we need to get the permitting for the utilities and the restroom building done with, excuse me, building done with the water district, excuse me, and the city. And then there's a 6-month lead time for delivery of the restroom, which is from the supplier, which is Romtech. And so we're looking at construction starting with the utilities, obviously, installation. And ideally, we'd like to do that early 2026. It does also depend on the site conditions. Like we can't just do it if it's too wet, and also permitting requirements. Excuse me. Lastly, I want to point out or acknowledge our funding for this project. Without funding, this wouldn't have gone anywhere. The county really stepped up big to fund the planning work. And Post also contributed substantially to the funding of the planning work. I also want to note that Post was a huge help to CLT in funding the acquisition of that ravine area, which made this project possible as a key prior step for this project. Many, many generous individuals donated to the Ryan Popple and the Rick Lohman Memorial Funds that were dedicated specifically to supporting development of this trail project, and we couldn't have done it without that funding and that support. And we're all very fortunate to have a large grant from the Coastal Conservancy for construction of the project. And then we also have a smaller amount of money in mitigation funding that came via the Coastal Commission for the beach access component of the project. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. We have a number of questions, so I think we'll just jump right into them. Larry is actually asking right away, what are the volunteer opportunities here for restoration, cleanup, etc., to be part of this project specifically? And we can and Larry, we can give you, we'll send in the follow-up some opportunities for ways that you can get involved with CLT in general. But Sarah, do you want to talk about any of those that might link directly to the trail?
Yeah, so one of the things, I didn't get a chance to mention this in the presentation, but we are looking to do a lot of what we call seed salvage and plant salvage in areas where the trail alignment will go through. The alignment itself will probably be minorly adjusted as we go along because we're going to be working with a biologist and as well as the engineer and the contractor together to identify where there's areas where it might be better aligned a little bit further to the left or to the right, so that we can avoid maybe a really nice patch of certain types of plants, native plants. And where we can't, we're going to want to save as many of those plants as we can and replant them in the restoration areas. So there definitely will be opportunities to help out with maybe salvage, as we call it, salvaging some of those plants. And then we'll be kind of caring for them until we can plant them in the winter when it's nice and wet. So there'll be opportunities to get involved in the restoration aspect of this for sure. And and I know a lot of folks, that's one of the things they like to do out there is get involved, get their hands dirty. So that's one big opportunity. We also do regular monitoring, and this area is already regularly monitored, but we're going to be doing even more frequent monitoring as we get, once the trail's in place, to help us, make sure we're identifying where there might be touch-ups needed on the trail, or other things, any other issues, et cetera. So that's another way to get involved with CLT around the project, but also just in general, we do monitoring of all of our projects, and that'll be especially important for this area.
Awesome. We have someone asking, you've done so much of this work with projects like this, with the reason or the rationale for choosing the type of wood, the redwood. I know you had said not pressure treated wood, but why that versus any other?
Yeah. Well, so the redwood, it does hold up quite well under these conditions out there. It's a rough environment, and so, we did look at other options like you can't really pour concrete and have it be stable in that area. You don't want to pour a lot of concrete make concrete steps into that environment if you can avoid it. And the bluffs are really they're in natural way they're retreating, they're eroding. That's part of this natural environment. It's happening unnaturally fast because of the drainage and erosion issues that are happening, but we don't necessarily want to put something super permanent in that respect in there, understanding that there will be over time erosion. The wooden stairs are more amenable to this environment. And also we don't want to use pressure treated because it's not great for the environment, but also the people building the stairs. When you have to cut a bunch of wood, being exposed to pressure treated wood is really not great. Also, to pressure treat the wood of this size, it's large pieces of redwood for the treads, would involve it basically really soaking them, or however they do it, in that the material, pressure treated toxic chemicals essentially. So there's a lot of good reasons why we didn't want to do pressure treated, but also the redwood is a wood that can survive in that environment for a relatively long time. There will be repairs and maintenance on the stairs. That's a key. We recognize that.
Okay, thank you. Number of questions about parking. I know that we aren't able to put the gate in, so a couple of questions about what our plan is for preventing the parking on the west end of the road if the gate's not allowed. Someone was asking about what kind of signage will we be having there? Is it possible to have a webcam installed at the parking lots?
These are some of the things that I've been working with the folks who live near Redondo and along Redondo Beach Road, as well as the city, to try to address some of the things like having like motion sensor lighting, a camera, and things like that. That might be things that we can incorporate into our parking areas. But at the end of the road, what we will that dirt area will be fenced off with it'll have what's called concrete post split rail fencing to keep vehicles from going in there. Now, along the side of the road, I think that there's technically no parking along the side of the roads. I think that's a matter of the city. It's a city road of installing, reinstalling no parking signs. We've been very supportive of having a gate to prevent access once our project's in place. There really shouldn't be a need for the vehicle access beyond our western parking area. And so CLT is really would like to see a solution like that put in place. And to have the parking and the access be in the designated parking areas that it's meant to go into. So those are the kind of next steps in terms of working on those issues.
Great. Someone else was asking, can we still park at the baseball lots and access the trail? Will we be able to walk north?
I realize I did a very poor job of noting that the trail does connect to, in fact, let's just go back up, and I'm just gonna, sorry for the scroll. I know it's not nice, but I want to point that out because I did not do a good job of pointing that. I guess I did say that the trail does, the trail connects. You can see here. So it will follow the kind of the existing road that's out there. We did not continue it down to all the way to Redondo Beach Road. There is this road here because I don't know if you can kind of tell, but it actually goes onto the parcel to the east here. And that's not our property, nor is it, it's just, these are casual trails basically. So we kind of stopped and we're like, well, that's about it. Anyways, it will definitely connect to the Smithfield parking lot with a nice trail.
Awesome. We keep the map up because someone else was asking, will there be a through trail access at the beach entrances? Walking around the ravine can often seem arduous. And I think what they're talking about is beach access from the other beaches. Is that?
Well, I mean, if you go down the stairs here, you're literally going to go, you could just, I think a lot of people will probably do that. If they go down the beach access on the south side, they can just go straight up the beach access on the north side. Yeah, for sure. That's the plan.
Awesome. Someone was asking about just when the trash, the classic problem of the trash containers overflowing. Is there going to be, what's our plan for that containment area? Just
I think, well, we are gonna, as I said, there are those bear saver, and right now, I mean, basically, we might have to adjust the timing, like the frequency of trash pickup in that case, which we would do. I mean, we will learn some of the things that we will adaptively manage based on how, what we're seeing happening. And so but we did not want to have dumpsters. This is not like, people shouldn't be bringing massive quantities of things and then disposing them at the beach. Even if you do bring massive quantities, you should be bringing them home. And so if you allow people to like have a dumpster, then that's just inviting it. So we wanted to have appropriately sized trash and containment for that.
I guess, and you're used to that, right? With all just sort of responding to what's being thrown at us and going, okay, so now we know we've got this much happening and adjusting to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're too rigid and can't, that's the point of like, you think through what you know to be likely challenges, and then you adjust as you find out that something you didn't expect happens. So yeah.
All right. Someone was also asking about, will it be easy enough to turn around at the end of Redondo Beach Road there? That she said kind of small portion of the end of Redondo
Yeah,
would be.
our parcel, let me see if the next one. Yeah, our parcel is still, it doesn't extend into the road. And so there's still, space that they can turn around. I don't know that, I'm not sure what the case would be. Like, for instance, if there's a gate here, if there might need to be a little turnaround spot, I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that aspect. If there, for instance, were a gate here, because you would have to enable people to turn around, I'm sure. But in terms of the area at the end, the restoration area is actually only on CLT's parcel. So there's space, in here to turn around. So.
Awesome. And then Julie was asking, will there be any more details in terms of our safety and security plan that we'll be talking as we go to the public? Plans to address people sleeping in their cars along the roads and the new parking lots, things like that.
I mean, that's exactly the same. Those are the same issues we're facing now. We are not going to be able to do anything additional. The sheriff will be the responsible enforcement party, for this. So if there's issues like that, we already, as an organization, work with, with the sheriff's office when there's illegal overnight parking and stuff like that, and camping and stuff, like in encampments, et cetera. These are the same things that don't change necessarily. But we will definitely, continue to work with the enforcement. And it depends. Sometimes it's a combo of like the city's on city property as well. We worked with the city closely. So these are things that we're already dealing with, and it will be the same situation in terms of how we deal with it for the parking in the project area.
Great. Helen asks, is there any consideration for benches anywhere along the bluff?
We didn't include benches, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't. So, I wonder about that too. I think that sometimes it depends on where the benches are. Sometimes I think that if they're not right along the trail, they encourage people to go off trail. So, but I like that, and I may be too busy right now to think about it because I'm trying to get the project to construction in less than a month. But I appreciate that comment, and I will reinitiate it as an idea for locations around the on the trail, because I do think it's lovely to be able to sit on a bench sometime and just zone out and enjoy the scenery.
Mm. Would you mind just sharing who's going to be the responsible for locking the restroom? Who's responsible for locking the restroom?
So the restrooms actually they have auto locks on them. So they will be, their timer locks. And so we'll definitely, there'll be weekly checking in and stuff. And obviously there'll be signage posted with who to call if there's any issues and stuff like that. But the locks themselves are automated locks.
Awesome. when you think about this project, what are you kind of most excited? You've been putting your blood, sweat, and tears day in, day out for a very, very long time, and on you go. Do you have what makes you excited about the project? What are you looking forward to?
Um, I'll be honest, right now, I'm probably not looking forward to much about it because it's a pretty daunting project. But in terms of the outcome of
Yeah,
it,
the outcome. Yeah, like what are you
okay,
looking
yeah, the
forward to?
outcome. Um, I am really excited about this trail, this access that's so much more accessible and safe for all users, as opposed to right now. I feel like the use is kind of dependent on your ability levels. It's also there's a lot of areas where we're really hurting the environment out here, the habitat and the kind of causing really fast erosion. We don't mean to, we just love it. But I am looking forward to that aspect of like everybody having a trail that's really usable for all people of all mobilities. And I am a public access kind of, I'm a bird and bunny kind of gal, but I'm also a public access kind of gal. I really like public access. I love seeing people out there enjoying being outside and appreciating and having a good time on their own or with friends and family. It makes me happy. I like seeing people happy. And I feel like being out here on the trails and at the beach, it's just nice to see people having a good time.
Wonderful. Yeah. We have actually an incoming question just came in, said, what's going to happen to the old trails? Will current informal trails be removed or will they stay available?
So the old trails, you mean in the casual trails, that's what I was referring to, those informal trails that we'll be restoring as much as possible. So we're going to be trying to get them revegetated. That's where we'll use the equipment to kind of rip up the ground a little bit because it's really compacted, add more soil, seed, and so they can start to regrow and stop the erosion because that's a constant, those trails are concentrating the runoff, kind of creating their own streams, ditches essentially, and that's causing a lot of erosion. And we'll be able to do that in the areas where CLT owns the property or it's a city paper street because we have the license to use license for that. And so that's in all the areas that are not pink on this map again. And so the pink areas are the parcels that are non-CLT private land. So we're going to try to do as much of that as we can because that will really help consolidate use onto the formal trail that we're building and also address the erosion. That's the big problem, the drainage and erosion problems.
So many pieces to this equation. And gosh, thank you to all of you who are here and listening that have played a part, whether that's been financial or whether that's just really kind of sharing information with people. And Sara, thank you for all of the work that you're putting into making this happen. I can say from someone who knows Sara from the other side that the amount of work that she is putting into this is absolutely incredible. Yeah. And thank you for making time too to share this with everybody, for people to get to gain information about this trail, because I think it's exciting. Anything new is scary too, where people are like, don't change anything. And you're like, wait, but this is for a really good cause. And there's so many reasons why this is going to both help for equal access and allow us to improve the habitat there. And there's so many pieces to that we won't see the benefits of that until it starts really moving and past the teenage phase, like you were saying, some of the phase where we go, wait, but those plants don't look good. Give it a minute. Just give it time to grow.
Yes, exactly.
And one thing I know about you too that I'm excited about too is just your ability to, like you're saying, we're going to be doing all of this and then being open to saying, well, what about benches? Well, we take one step at a time. Well, how are we going to manage the trash? Well, we're going to set a plan, and then when we decide if this works, then we gauge it from there. So, problem solving as we go. I hear a number of people are sharing their gratitude here too in the question and answer. And for those of you who are here today, thank you so much for making this time to become educated. Please, if now that you know a bit more than the average person about this, please share this information. This is all of our backyard, right? And this is all of our shared space. And whether you've given financially or not, or whether you use that space or you've spent your life running, I think of Rick Lohman, right, with who a number of people have shared financially in memory of him. He spent years and years and years running along this coastline, right? And so this is near and dear to a lot of people for all sorts of different reasons. Birders who've been out there, people out there and the tunnel of trees out there looking for owls. So this is a really, really special place, and this is going to allow a lot of growth in a lot of areas. So thank you though to those of you who are here and being a part of this. And we will be sharing this again. You all we have the follow-up, so you'll be getting this sent to your inbox in the next couple of days. And as Sarah mentioned, we'll be sharing that link to that page in the follow-up too, so you can keep tabs with what's going on. We're just putting together a page. We have the page, but like a blog that you'll be able to kind of follow along, and we'll have that access to you, so you can start with that in the follow-up email. So yeah, thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for being here, and enjoy this beautiful, it's sunny out there here, so enjoy the day, and we will all look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Bye, everybody.